Hey there guys, what's going on? Fluffless Formulations here. In the background you'll see some footage of Open XCOM, which is the original XCOM UFO defense. I attempted to record an episode and my microphone was not functioning properly. So instead I'm going to be doing kind of an overlap, kind of a narration over the top. So the footage really isn't super important. I'm not even going to put this in the I might put it in an XCOM playlist, but I wouldn't count this part of the XCOM series that I'm going to start doing. What I'm going to do today, and I have some notes prepared for this, is talk about a little bit why I think retro games are, why I prefer classic games. Because if any of you have seen anything I've done on Twitter or any of that stuff, you'll know I have all kinds of classic games. Like, I have probably 60 games. They're all like MS-DOS or like 2003 or earlier games. Like they're old games compared to what a lot of people have. And I figure, you know, if I have to be sitting here talking for about 40 minutes, and I'm probably not even going to fill all of this time, but I'm going to try my best. But I'm going to go over a few reasons why I think classic games are, at least, if nothing else, even if they're not like your thing, why they're at least worth your time. And I think XCOM is, since it's a game that I spent a lot of time just going through menus and things, I think it's probably a good thing to have in the background for something like this. And I've said before, kind of like with my Euro Truck Simulator, I kind of wanted to have like a discussions playlist, so I'll probably put this in there, because this will be the first actual, like, legitimate discussion video I've done, so I'm kind of excited for that. And I know the intro little clip was really weak. I didn't put a whole lot of time into it, to be honest. I'm making this in Windows Movie Maker at like 12:30 at night, so they will improve. Trust me, the quality will improve. But I would say one of the reasons I think that retro gaming, it still has merit, is to me, at least personally, I think that, like, everyone always talks about whenever they play a game, they always talk about graphics and sound. And don't get me wrong, I love graphics in games. I think graphics are wonderful, and I think good sound design makes a game. Like, you could give me a game like Doom that's freaking amazing. It's my favorite game of all time, Doom 2. But if it didn't have the right soundtrack and there wasn't all the gory sound effects going along with it, I don't know if it would have the same impact that it did when it came out, or even to this day. Because sound design is really important, and that's a discussion for an entirely other videos, why sound is important. But people will always say, if you talk about like classic retro games, they'll always say, oh, well, it's like, why wouldn't you want to play a newer game? Because it has better graphics, and like, they have all the new sound stuff, so it would not only sound better, but it would also look better. And I agree, there's the ability to make much more realistic games, without a doubt, and no one can deny that. Like, like, if you look at, I don't know, say Kirby's Adventure from 1993, and then you look at, I don't know, I guess the game everyone uses as a benchmark for graphics, like, you could use The Witcher 3. If you looked at those two games side by side and took someone who wasn't someone who wasn't a gamer at all, so they didn't, like, someone who might not even know what these two things are just by looking at them, and you said, okay, which one of these do you think looks better? 9 out of 10 of them would probably tell you The Witcher 3. But I don't think that means that Kirby's Adventure looks bad. I think Kirby's Adventure, especially for the day, for 1993, with its, I don't know, it probably had, I think, 5 colors on screen max at a time or something, because it was on the Game Boy, and the Game Boy didn't have a lot of color. I mean, it was on the Game Boy Color, but you know what I mean. There wasn't a whole lot of, I think it was like 16 colors total at a time possible, but of course they don't use all that, because heat up the system. Anyways, but so many people would say The Witcher 3, and if you look at Kirby's Adventure, especially for at its time, when it was released, compared to everything else that was out on the market. It looked stunning. And I still think, and part of this might be me being biased because I like older games, I look at Kirby's Adventure and I do think that The Witcher 3 looks better. But that's partially because I just like The Witcher 3. And if you're going for how did the graphics look, if you're not going for like the style of it, if you're just going for purely which is more detailed, it's going to be The Witcher 3. But I feel like Kirby's Adventure is still one of those things that I'll download a ROM of it and play it, or even like the footage in the background of XCOM, the first one. It's enemy unknown in other countries, but over in the US it was UFO encounter, UFO something. What is it called? It is UFO Defense. But like you look at that and you'd think, okay, well, I mean, they remade they did the new one in 2012. I think it was 2012. They did the XCOM Enemy Unknown / Enemy Within game that was kind of the updated, sort of a remaster of this game. And I want to say, was it Apocalypse that was supposed to be loosely based? I can't remember. There was another one of the games, or was it a mod? I can't remember. There was something that Enemy Within was based off of loosely, but anyways, like, yeah, compared to a lot of things, then you have to keep in mind the footage in the background is running in like kind of like what GZ Doom is for the Doom games, where it's like a special launcher that lets it run in 1080p 60 frames a second. So it looks a little better than it probably did back when it was released in 1994, but I still don't think it looks bad. And here I am just typing in a name and I can't spell it. I'm pulling it up on my phone because I can't remember how to spell her username. But you'll see when you get into actual footage, like, the game doesn't look bad per se. It just looks like, it looks dated, for sure, but I don't think it looks bad. So that's something. Like, I don't know. Like, I feel like so many things, especially in like shooter games, are I don't know, that a lot of them go for various shades of gray and brown, and they look kind of grainy and grimy, and like, I don't know, I feel like a lot of the older games were more pastels and vibrant, and it was a bit more like, I don't know, they didn't look as original. A lot of games now I feel like kind of look the same. I don't know, just because they're trying so hard to all be like ultra realistic, and I think it's holding them back. And yeah, they don't look, I don't know, they're not as stylized, and it's not a great thing. But like, I mean, this stylized thing, it's not a great thing, I guess, to bring up, because that's very much a personal opinion. But anyways, another reason that I think classic games are still totally worth your time is there's basically no loading times, especially if you're running them on a machine like this thing that I got. That's probably terrifying noise. Tapped the side of my computer, and just the panel wiggled. It was supposed to make the whole computer kind of rock, and it was supposed to sound cool and deep, but also that panel's loose, which doesn't help. It got bent, and so now the panel doesn't fit right, and I don't know why it bent, and it bothers me. But anyways, but yeah, if you're running it on something like I have, and you run it, with the proper kind of like a modern enhancement, kind of like what this thing is that's running, it's running XCOM right now. They basically load instantly. You click on, like, I'll click on my desktop to launch GZ Doom, or I'll launch like Open XCOM, or the other day I was playing some Serious Sam 1, and bam, it was up. It was just, and yeah, I do have a solid state, so that helps, and I have like really high RPM hard drives, so that definitely helps. But I mean, what's something people complain about a lot with a lot of newer games is that they would sit there and load forever, or if they don't load, you, like, say you buy Black Ops 3 on an Xbox One or a PS4, whatever your preference is, and or even on Steam. I mean, you buy it, but we'll use the consoles as an example. You'll buy the disc and be like, sweet, I got the game. So you bring it home, you put the disc in, and it has an 85 gig download. Now, it's not the end of the world. I mean, anymore, internet's so fast. Even like a low-end internet is so much faster than even the internet I had when I was little, and I'm not even, like, I'm only 20, so, I mean, the internet when I was a kid isn't that bad compared to probably a lot of you guys probably didn't even have internet. But, you know, I mean, my generation kind of grew up with it. But, yeah, like, since video games have become more complicated, that means that you have to wait longer for all of your games to load. Or if you buy, like I just said, you buy a game on a disc, and that disc, because of how complicated and graphically impressive these games are, they can't fit all of that on a disc. Whereas older games, you'd buy the floppy disk or you'd buy the cartridge for your console, and that was it. That was the whole game. So loading time was the amount of time it took you to put it into your system and turn it on. Although I know with floppy disks, like, I know Doom came out on 3 separate floppy disks, and you could install them to your computer. So, you know, there's installation time, which was, you know, a few minutes. Or you could just put each floppy disk in as you got to each chapter. But, you know, you could load them all on and have it all in like an exe file, kind of similar setup on your computer, so you didn't need the floppy disks in to play the game. But yeah, like anymore, like you turn on like a modern game, even if it's a game that's like, I was playing Skyrim the other day, for example, and I booted it up and it's on my solid state, and I was gonna go ahead and play some Skyrim. So I clicked on my character that I had been working on a little bit. Not super far in the game, but you know, I had a character that I've been playing with. And so I loaded the save, and about 6 minutes passed before it finally let me in. Now I restarted it after that, because that made me a little upset that it took 6 minutes, because I mean, my computer, especially with its fast hard drives and things, it shouldn't take 6 minutes to load that game, but it did, and I restarted it and it definitely improved. But even the second time, I probably waited, you know, 2 minutes for the save to load, which again, it's not the end of the world, but I mean, compared to a lot of older games where you would put in the cartridge or the floppy disk and you just turn your machine on and there it is, or you click on the executable, or like the CD inserted in your My Computer thing. I don't know, like I guess I haven't really used floppy disks, so I don't really know how that worked, but like it was instant. Like compared to now, I don't know. It's probably a bit of a no point for a lot of people. They're like, yeah, you're waiting, but you get a lot, like, graphical fidelity out of it and stuff. And I agree with that. Like, I have a lot of games that I'm into, like the new Doom 2016. That game takes like 3 minutes to even launch on my computer, but I love that game, and I'm willing to wait that long. So yeah, and I just want to throw it out there. I'm not trying to say, oh, well, you shouldn't play modern games, only play classics. No, play modern games. I love modern games too. Modern games are awesome, but so are some of the old ones. And that's another point I want to make, I guess, but a bullet point. Is a lot of classic games, yeah, they don't look as good. Maybe the sound's a little wonky, especially on, you know, modern sound systems, because they were built for the older sound systems, and they didn't have the same kind of technology to, you know, of course, put out the same, I guess, music quality. Like, they couldn't have as many channels for their music to go through. Like, if you take, like, the Final Fantasy 1 soundtrack, I want to say that had, like, 8 channels as an option for the guy who made their sound. I can't remember his name. The guy who made the soundtrack, I want to say there was, like, 8 channels that he had to put, like, if you understand, I don't know if you understand music to any degree, but if you don't, the way music is recorded is every channel would be one instrument, or back then it would be one sound that they would, one MIDI track that they would use to represent one instrument. And so if you only had 8, that means your big soundtrack for this big grand game, something like Final Fantasy, of course, it has like these big beautiful like orchestral like you know the Final Fantasy-esque soundtracks, where they're these big grand orchestral pieces as you're traveling across the plains and going on this big, great adventure. If you only have 8 instruments, like, that's not a lot of instruments. Like, you can have, that would be a bass drum, a snare drum, because, of course, back then you can't put the whole drum set on one track like you can now. I mean, maybe you could, but, I mean, they never did, because it ended up sounding muddy when you did. So they would have a bass drum, a snare drum, a cymbal maybe, so maybe you don't have to put that in there. Let's say, you know, a flute. Let's say, like a violin would be in there. You'd have like a bass line, or a bass guitar maybe, I don't know, a bass instrument in there. And then you would only have space for 3 other instruments to be like little harmonies, and I guess to maybe fill out the melody and add chords. You only have 3 other instruments for your entire soundtrack. You like, and 2, possibly 3 of those 8 tracks have been taken up just by the percussion. So it's not giving you a lot of options. So that's like, I don't know. Like, so they obviously couldn't have the same musical fidelity that we can today, I guess is my point. But just because these games maybe don't have like these big amazing soundtracks like the new Doom game, for example. Honestly, I'm bringing that up a lot because I freaking love that game. Like, that was my game of the year 2016. Like, it was, I have over 100 hours in it, and it's freaking awesome. But the soundtrack is killer. I actually downloaded it to my phone, and I listened to it actually a lot. But, like, so they couldn't have that, and, you know, if you put 2016 Doom next to Doom 2, and you, again, took someone who didn't know what they were, and said, which one looks better? Doom 2016 is gorgeous. Like, that is eye candy in almost every way. It's also a great game. Like, I think it plays really well, and the soundtrack's great. Like, I have no problems with that game. But, you know, that doesn't mean that Doom 2 is a bad game. Just because you look at it next to the new Doom, and you think, oh, well, the new Doom looks so much better, and there's the glory kills, which are pretty awesome, and, like, the soundtrack is so intense. Like, it's really intense, but they also have freaking infinite musical possibilities with that. Like, I don't think that means Doom 1 or 2, or, you know, the classic couple Dooms, the ones that, when you tell someone, oh yeah, I play the original Dooms, the ones that they think of. I don't think those are bad, just because it doesn't look as nice, maybe. I think it looks great, but that's a personal preference. Just because it doesn't look the same as the new Doom doesn't mean that it's a bad game. So yeah, and I guess that kind of goes back to my first point of, you know, graphics, like the graphics and sound being enhanced. But, I mean, if you think about, for a game that was, I think it's 27 megabytes for Doom 2, like, that's really small by today's standards. And I'm doing a Let's Play of that actually currently at the time of me making this video, and I am probably about an hour or 2 into it, like, including kind of my offline personal playthrough of it. And I am a third of the way through the game, maybe. I mean, just if the Let's Play I watched of it prior had anything to, and I didn't actually watch it, I just pulled it up and used it as like a reference point for length. But if that holds a candle at all to, like, the file size on a modern game, you would have a game that's 24 megabytes, and if it was gonna have even close to the graphics that we have today, it would be 30-second long game, or it would be like a 2-minute long video if it was compressed and run in a really low quality format. Like, I don't know, like, I don't know, like, the older games are smaller, but it doesn't mean they're not good, and they're not long, and there's not good, like XCOM that's running in the background. That entire game was 16 megabytes, and I'm currently watching kind of a let's play of it, because the encounters are all random. There's nothing to really spoil, and I'm using it partially to teach myself how to play this game, because there's no tutorial, it just throws you in. It doesn't even explain the base system. But this game is 16 megabytes, and this guy has like 87 30-minute long episodes on this game, just of the base game, and then he has another one where he installed the Long War mod, which I know became really popular with the 2012 XCOM, and then XCOM 2 has it on Steam Workshop actually, which is really handy because that's like the easiest way to mod a game I've ever seen in my life. But like, he had all of that playtime on a game that is 16 megabytes. I downloaded it and my dad got a flight simulator the other day, and you know, there were some drivers that you had to install to get the controls working, because he got, you know, the rudders, the pedal things, and he got the wheel, I don't know what it's called, the piloting wheel thing, steering wheel thingamajig, and like the throttle knob thing, like the lever for the throttle. And just downloading the installers for those drivers was more than 16 gigabytes for the 3 drivers. They literally, all they do is tell the computer, like, hey, this is something that the user trusts, make sure that it runs and gets powered. And my phone is going off. Magical. That's actually a tweet. So that's cool. But yeah, like, I don't know, like, I feel like for a file size that small to have that much in there, just for the sake of, you know, maybe not the prettiest graphics in the world, or it's all pixel art, which I think is beautiful, but again, a lot of people might disagree with me on that, and that's totally fine. I'm not, again, trying to force you to play classic games. If you like modern games, that's totally fine. But I think that, especially for file size versus, like, even if it's not like length of the game, if it's just quality of the game, like, I don't know, I feel like the old games, just because they're old and, you know, their graphics aren't as nice, doesn't mean they're bad games. Like, at least try them, because there's so many websites. I'll even put a couple in the description of this video that will let you play like MS-DOS games for free, just in your browser. You don't even have to download anything. So I'll put some of those down there, and just go on there. I mean, look up a list. I'll probably throw one in there of some really good MS-DOS games you could go try. I'll even freaking give you the link to the exact page to go play Doom 2 for free in your browser. Don't have to download anything, but just try it. And I mean, maybe it's not your cup of tea, but like, look at it from a game. I don't know. Don't look at it from, I don't know what I'm trying to say. Go try it. It's a really good game, even if that's not your cup of tea. There's plenty of other games on that website that I'm going to put a link down to. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head right now, but it's like, you'll find something in there that you at least kind of enjoy. So go give it a shot. I think you guys will, you know, I think, see my point. Another thing that I think makes classic games really good, or retro games, whatever you want to call them, I think especially compared to modern games now, because if any of you have followed modern games to any extent, you'll know basically all that comes out for modern games anymore at this point are a bunch of FPS games. Like, how many games, FPS games and MOBAs. Outside of, you know, there's like Rocket League that came out that's really unique and cool, and then there's the games that are, you know, trying to be pixel art, like retro games. Like, you know, there's Hyper Light Drifter, and I guess, I don't know if I'd call Binding of Isaac that, but, you know, stuff like Nuclear Throne or Cryptarch that are trying to kind of go back to kind of an old school style of game, and so they're trying to stylize it to be pixel art stuff, kind of older games. And you know, they're obviously trying to model their gameplay in a similar fashion. Outside of, you know, things like that, it seems like all you get is like another Elder Scrolls installment and another Fallout installment and more Call of Duty games and or more shooters, even if it's not Call of Duty. And I know there's differences. Not all FPS games are the same. I'm not trying to say that, but just for the sake of the argument, let's clump FPS games as a bundle, just because it's easier to say that. You kind of get just new installments of FPS games, and then there's a couple franchises that are a little bit different, such as Fallout, Skyrim, kind of the Bethesda things. You know, Doom came out, but that's again an FPS game, so I don't know. But it's also trying to be kind of a classic, so I don't know. It's not really trying to be retro, though. But anyways, you get my point. It's just kind of, I guess, repetition of what they know works. They found out that people will buy a Call of Duty installment every single year, so that's all they make. You don't see Activision making anything new outside of new Call of Duties now. But, you know, a lot of classic games, since the market was, of course, so new, and they had so many ideas, and I guess they were more willing to just kind of jump into the deep end with them, they had a lot more original games. Yeah, like, there's so, like, and, look, I don't want you to call me, like, I don't want you guys to be like, oh, well, you're just being friggin' retro game fanboy, because I know full well that there were plenty of rehashes and rip-offs back in, like, the 16-bit era and, you know, the DOS era. And there were horrible games that were derived from works that people loved, and licensed games that were just like there were games like Mega Man 5, Sonic and Knuckles, and you know, Castlevania Bloodlines, I guess, that were, you know, they were still like games that you like, but it feels almost like Infinite Warfare to me, where like I liked Call of Duty when I played it, you know, when I was a little kid, but I feel like now it's just they're doing the same thing every year, and it's not even being different enough to make it like interesting anymore. I feel like they're just like changing the setting. But no, I feel like back in like the mid 90s, even like the biggest game developers that they had were they had like a real desire to experiment and wheel out like new original titles. And you know, I mean, think about it. Like there was like Nintendo they had like Legend of Zelda and Mario, and they made a lot of those. But at the same time, they were also doing Earthbound. They had Uniracers. They had Kirby's Adventure. And then, you know, Sega, of course, had Sonic and the Phantasy Star games. But they also had stuff like Comic Zone, Gunstar Heroes, Ristar, I don't know how you say that. But yeah, like if you looked at a company today like Activision or Bethesda or something like that, they're all doing the same. I would say probably the biggest companies, like, I mean, you know, I feel like Activision and Bethesda kind of rehash things, but I think as far as doing it to a point where I find it almost criminal, EA and Square are just, it's the same game all the time. Or like, for example, Dance Dance Revolution. It's a good game, and I can see why people play Dance Dance Revolution. No harm against, not saying anything bad against like the Dance Dance games, but they make one almost every year, and I feel like they're not innovating. Even the Dance Dance Revolution formula, they're not trying to, and I don't know how much you even can really innovate it, but they're not even trying. But like, think about that and the amount of effort that it probably takes realistically to put together a Dance Dance Revolution game, because they probably have templates for days on Dance Dance Revolution things. And then think about something like Earthbound. Which one do you think in 15 years, if you're looking at your shelf of games and you're like, I want a game that like I loved as a kid that, like, I don't know, will hold my attention and remind me of what I loved about gaming. Which do you think are going to pull off the shelf? Dance Dance Revolution, Hottest Party, or Earthbound? I don't know. Again, that might just be me, but I would say another thing is it feels like a lot of older games are, I don't know, they don't absorb you into the experience the same way the old school games did. And I would say, like, part of that is just the age we live in. Like, we live in a multitasking age, and like, I don't know if we lack the want to have an attention span, or we just don't. I don't know how to even explain it. Like, just the way that the world is set up now. Like, even, like, as you heard earlier, my phone went off and it was a freaking Twitter notification. Like, I can't do anything without being notified of something going on the internet, or getting a text message from a friend, or something of that nature. So it's like, even like in the heat of like a Call of Duty game or something, they're periodically pulled out because there'll be on-screen indicator pop-ups to let them know that their friend is online, or they'll pause it to go check a text, or there'll be like a news bar at the bottom of your screen that's talking about a new update or crates that came out or something like that. And it seems like there's just no, like, when I play a lot of these older games, and I mean, you know, I'm playing them on Steam, so I guess take that with a grain of salt. But when I'm playing these older games, especially if I put myself in offline mode for Steam and just play the game, or do what I'm doing for the video in the background, or I'm playing it not even through Steam, and I actually had Steam closed, like, I just feel like, since just the way that the game's set up, like, it's trying so much more to, because it knew it didn't have fancy visuals and like, I don't know, I guess the fan power that it seems like a lot of the games that keep getting pumped out year after year have, because so many of these games were going for those original concepts and trying to be quirky little weird things that, you know, maybe weren't the best games, like, overall, like, in the grand scheme of things, but they were trying to be original and kind of, even if their game wasn't super polished and nice, they were trying to at least pull out a new concept for a game and make people think of, like, you know, what a game can do and what a game can be. Like, so I guess they were focusing so much more on that, like, that they just, even with the graphics being the way that they are, which again to a lot of people might not be super incredible graphics, I feel like they tried so much harder and with more effect to pull you into these worlds and make you feel like you, one, were a part of them, or two, actually wanted to be a part of them, because they would just like, I don't know, they just presented themselves in a way that was like, we're trying to present you with a world. And I know that there are games that do that, and I'm not saying that new games are trying to do that, but I feel like new games, even single player games, I feel like, or games that are like predominantly single player games, now have online modes that are almost forced, just because you have to be connected to the server so that they can make sure you're not using a pirated version of the game. So you can't even, like, and I'm not saying piracy is okay, I mean, I know why they do it, but the fact that you always have to be online to launch some games, or that so many games have their, like, multiplayer games are great, but I feel like games are forcing it now, so it's pulling you out of the experience a little more. But I will say, thanks to online gaming, I don't know if we, like, you can play like World of Warcraft or Halo with online clans and guilds and things, and you can be like, yeah, I made friends in this game. yeah, like you make friends playing these games, whatever. But I feel like, since you can just do it from your own home and you're not actually going over to other people's houses to go like plug in to your friend with the better internet to use their to have like a big LAN party. You're not getting the same, yeah, you're still talking to these people and whatever, but you're not able to, I don't know. I guess it makes sense in my head. I don't know how to articulate it. I feel like having a LAN party with your friends, or even couch co-op, is a lot more of a bonding experience than online gaming probably ever can be, just because you're actually physically there with somebody. I feel like that's, I'm not saying I'm against online gaming, but that's one thing that I think they could probably improve on a little bit, is end of the day, all the experiences you have in online gaming are all machine-assisted gaming things. So, end of the day, are you making like a real friend, or is it just an internet friend? And that's something else that comes up, is when you back with a lot of the older games, and again, this is getting a little off topic of why the games are good, but I think why the culture built around the games were good, which still, I think, helped bolster the games a little bit. Is like the friends that you made to play these games because you couldn't just connect over the internet and play with some random stranger who ends up calling you a faggot in Call of Duty or CSGO and kicks you for being a lower level than he is. If you were going to play a game with somebody, you had to know them personally, and you had to go to their house and set up in their basement and set up the LAN thing. So, the people that you were playing with were, you made, actual friends that you could, hang out and do other stuff with, too. And, I don't do a lot of other stuff with my friends outside of gaming, but at least the idea is there, that, you actually know this person in real life, you know what their face looks like, and, I don't know, I feel like it was a bit more of a personal thing. And as far as why I like classic games, personally, I guess to get more back on track of the actual games themselves, and why I'm making this video, essentially, is when I was, probably 4 or 5 years ago, I had just I got this little laptop that I am, sorry. This little laptop that I was super blessed to get, honestly, because I had nothing. I had an Xbox 360 that was on its last leg, and that was all I had. So I was given this laptop, and it was a real downgrade from my Xbox, which is where I first started getting into retro games and emulating games, and that's where I actually started doing YouTube, was actually when my Xbox started falling apart. We had this old computer in my basement that I used to use to watch YouTube. It was all I did on it. It ran Windows XP. The only program installed on that thing was a web browser. I think it was Google Chrome. And so I would watch Markiplier on it, because I tried to play games on it. I had a 2D version of Team Fortress 2 called Gang Garrison 2 that I was playing it the other day on here, actually, because I remembered that game. But it barely ran that. And this game is 2D pixel art, like 16-bit colors. It's not a hard game to run in any sense of the word. And yet this computer was struggling so much with it, which I found just incredible, honestly. I thought it was amazing, just that a computer could run that poorly, really. That just didn't seem like a thing that could even be done. But, yeah, so I guess part of the reason I'm so passionate about this is because, the computer that I had was really bad. So, I guess having a computer so bad, I really had to change my outlook on, what games I was even willing to go get. Because I had to realize that any game that I got would run like crap if I got anything modern. So I had to start looking into older games. So then I got that laptop after I had that the YouTube computer, which was literally, I wrote that in Sharpie on the side of the stupid thing. So I got this laptop, and it was like an old laptop from my dad's work that he gave me because they were just throwing them away. And he's like, "Hey, you like computers? Take one of these." So I took it, and I tried to run. What did I try to play on it? I tried to play. It was Call of Duty World at War, and it ran at 30 frames a second on medium. It was playable, but it wasn't great. So I ended up. I found. First I installed Linux on it, which I think changed a lot of things as well. But I was looking for games to play even when it was running on Linux, and if anyone knows anything about Linux, it's really lightweight. At least the version I was using, I made especially sure to get the lightest weight version possible, because that computer ran bad. I knew it. I needed the lightest weight operating system I could get, so I used the Linux Lite, which I actually I have dual booted on this thing because I love Linux Lite. It's freaking awesome. It's just a great, really fast operating system, so look that up if you're interested. But so I had that on there, and I ended up switching freaking Linux distros like every other week because I thought it was cool. I was super into Linux. I still am. I think it's really cool. But that's not the point. Because this computer was so bad, I had to get an operating system that was super light so I could use my hardware more for games. Because my hardware was so bad, I couldn't actually play like normal games because they all just failed. It would make my computer crumble. So I got this operating system, fell in love with it, it was awesome. But I started looking around in the Linux App Store, the Linux Lite, their application store thing, and I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head, the App Market or something like that. But I found this game called Battle for Westnoth that I played longer than I probably would have played a game like that, because it's like a turn-based strategy game. I'm not even really into turn-based strategy games. Like, really, I mean, like, here I am playing XCOM. I really like XCOM, but like before I found XCOM, it's more like it's like a JRPG version, like a Final Fantasy-esque kind of turn-based thing. Anyways, like, I played that game for hours and hours and hours, and I realized, like, as I had this laptop for the few years that I had it, as I was playing with it day in and day out, I was realizing that, like, these games are awesome, and I'm really enjoying myself and having a fun time, but they're not super graphically intense. They're all, like, pixel art games, little indie games. Like, the best thing I could run, there was a game, I can't even remember what it was called, it was like a web-based online shooter. It was, like, hardly even 3D, and, like, that was the best I could do, and even that ran like garbage. But I was beginning to realize, like, I don't really care about graphics, and so I started thinking, what are games that, like, didn't have, maybe the most stellar graphics that I could get, like, in bulk? Because if you look at my Steam account, I have over 500 games. I like having games in bulk. I don't even know why, because I realize I'm never going to play all these games. But I went back to classics, and there it was. A plethora of games that ran on my system, low hardware requirements. You could literally run them on your phone, and there's tons of them, and just because they're old doesn't mean they're bad. So I guess end of the day, that's why I like retro games so much, and why I think they're worth your time, is if you have something with so-so hardware, or even if you just want to try them because you're curious, they run on basically anything. And just because their graphics are not like 4K, Super HD, not going to get like Crysis 2 graphics going on, doesn't mean it's not a great game. So I urge you to please go back and try some classic games. As I said, there'll be a link in the description below to that MS-DOS site that has all those games online for free. So please go check those out. Hope you guys enjoyed. I know it was a bit rambling, a bit unorganized, but sorry about that. I'll get that improved for the next video. Have a great evening, great rest of your day, whatever it is for you, morning, evening, night. I said evening because it's evening for me, and I will talk to you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.